Welcome to the Waubonsee Community College Foundation Scholarship Program Overview. In this presentation, I will provide you with a summary of how the Foundation Scholarship Program works, along with information about the scholarship opportunities available for the upcoming academic year and tips for writing a strong scholarship essay. The Waubonsee Community College Foundation was chartered in 1978 as a nonprofit to advance the educational and charitable purposes of the Waubonsee Community College. The primary mission of the foundation is to raise funds to be able to provide scholarships to Waubonsee students. So the scholarships that we administer through the foundation are specifically for Waubonsee students to use here at the college. They can't be used at other institutions. We have over 160 different scholarships that we administer. They all have different criteria. Our largest scholarship is $3,500. Our smallest is $250. On average, most of our scholarships tend to be around the $1,000 range. That's the typical amount. A lot of our scholarships give out multiple awards. So for the 24-25 academic year, we are actually set to give away 300 scholarship awards, totaling more than $300,000. Each of our scholarships has its own unique criteria. The nice thing is we have all of these scholarships, they all have different requirements. We have one online scholarship application for all of them. So when you fill out our application, based on your answers to the questions, the software that we use will go through your answers, figure out which scholarships you're eligible for, and automatically apply you to all of them when you hit submit. So you don't have to go through all 160 plus scholarships and figure out which ones you're eligible for. You're just answering the questions on our general scholarship application, and then the software will do the rest of the work for you. I always like to point out to students that because we have so many scholarships and they all have different criteria, there is something for every student. We have a lot of options out there. We actually have some scholarships where the only requirement is that you have to be a Waubonsee student. So everyone who applies will be eligible to be considered for something. Each student is different. I worked with a student one year. He was eligible to be considered for about 15 different scholarships. I worked with another student that same year. She was eligible to be considered for about 30. Just depends on which ones you match up to, but the software will do the work of figuring that out. Our scholarship application opened online on November 1st. So students have been able to start working on it and fill it out. And we're going to go over the specifics of the application process and the scholarship opportunities here today. So to give you an idea, as I mentioned, all of our 160 plus scholarships have different criteria. I've pulled some samples of some of the scholarships that we offer through our program to give you an idea. So these scholarships are specifically available to student athletes. So these are a great resource. So just to give you an idea of some of the opportunities, the criteria, and the amounts that we make available through these scholarships. As you can see, there's a range with these, all from $500 all the way up to $1,650. On the flip side of this, so the previous scholarships were specifically for student athletes. These are some of our scholarships that have more broad criteria. As you can see, the first one on this list is the Waubonsee Foundation Directors Scholarship, which is open to all students. So, there's a lot of opportunities here. For this particular scholarship, we are able to give out 25 awards of $1,000. Being that it's open to all Waubonsee students, there's quite a big applicant pool for us to pick from. And it's nice that we're able to give away so many for this particular award. But as you can see for some of the rest of them, for example, the Janet Bodie Memorial Scholarship is open to any students who are district residents. Then we also have the Myrtle Bell Jones Scholarship, which is open to any student who has a 2.5 GPA or above. You'll notice that particularly for our student athletes who a lot of time are coming from out of district or even out of state, unless the scholarship specifies district resident as a criteria, that scholarship will be open to any student, regardless of their residency, whether they are a student who's considered out of district or out of state. If there's no residency requirement listed with the scholarship, it is open to any student, regardless of their residency status and original location. So as far as the process for applying goes, for new students to the college, the first step in the application process is submitting the new student application, which is the application for admissions, which students can do by visiting waubonsee.edu/apply. When a student submits their new student application, it goes to our admissions office who will process it. And once you've been admitted to the college, you'll receive a confirmation email that contains your student ID number, what we call an X number. After you receive that confirmation email, what we do is we actually take all of the information for every active student at the college, and then we pull it into the scholarship software and we pre-create an account. So the first time a student is logging into our scholarship portal, what they're actually doing is they're logging into an account that we've already created for them. They're activating it and they're signing a password to it that very first time. We do this for a couple reasons. One, it's more secure. And two, we're able to pre-fill in any information that the student has already provided to the college so that they don't have to answer those questions again. So things like name, address, phone number, intended major, anything that the college already knows, we will fill in ahead of time so that the student doesn't have to take the time to answer questions on information that we already know. We always recommend to students to start at our website, so waubonsee.edu/foundation scholarships. On this page, you'll find the link to the scholarship application portal, as well as some helpful resources and PDF handouts and tutorial videos. So there's a lot of great information there. You'll notice that we have two scholarship deadlines. So some of our scholarships have an early deadline in February. Others have a later deadline in May. If you submit your application and all required materials by the February 5th deadline, that one application is good for all of the scholarships. If you miss the February 5th deadline, you can, for whatever reason, you can still apply all the way through May 13th. Your application is just then only going to be eligible for those scholarships that have a May 13th deadline. So in order to maximize the number of scholarships that you're able to be considered for, we always recommend to students to try to get everything in by that February 5th deadline date, because then that one application can be considered for all scholarships, regardless of whether it has a February deadline or a May deadline. That just increases the number of scholarships you can be considered for, which increases your chances of being selected to receive one. Here's our website. So when you type in waubonsee.edu/foundation scholarships, this is what you're going to see. Circled in green there is the link to our scholarship portal. And as I mentioned, further down on the page are those PDF handouts and tutorial videos that I mentioned earlier. So when you click on that link for waubonsee.academicworks.com, that's going to take you to our scholarship portal. Main page looks like this. So we've got some information, an overview, some quick details about the Foundation Scholarship Program. There's also information here about the Emergency Needs Fund Scholarship. So this is another scholarship that's funded by the foundation that is for current Waubonsee students specifically. And it's intended to provide quick assistance for students who are facing some kind of unexpected situation that's preventing their ability to continue their education. So we've received requests from students for things like car accidents, house fires, medical emergencies, car repairs, food insecurity, housing insecurity, job loss. So this is a one-time scholarship that can provide assistance not only for tuition if it's needed, but to be refunded directly to the students to help with some of those unexpected expenses that might be hindering a student's ability to continue their semester and finish their education. So the application for that is also accessible through our website. Then we also have external opportunities. So any outside private scholarship opportunities that our financial aid office knows about get posted to the scholarship portal. So this is a great resource for students to come back to on an ongoing basis to check out any new external scholarship opportunities that the financial aid office might have posted information about there. And towards the bottom of the screen there, you'll see there's a search by keyword box. And then the list of our scholarship opportunities starts. So when you're on this page on our website, as you scroll farther along, you'll find a searchable database of all of the scholarships that we currently administer, with the name of the scholarship, the award amount, criteria, details, anything that you might want to know. Again, you don't have to go through all of our scholarships and to familiarize yourselves with which ones you might qualify for. But if you're curious to see some of the opportunities that we have available, you can browse through that list. You can also do a search by keyword. So for example, if you are a business major and you type the word business there in that search box, as soon as you hit enter, it will filter that list down to any of the scholarships that have business as a keyword in them. since if they are set up specifically to be for students who have business as a major. So that will kind of give you a sense of some of the opportunities that we have available. The first time that you log in, you're going to click on the sign up button. It's circled in green up towards the top of the screen. When you click on that button, it's going to take you to this page. So our software provider is a company called Blackbaud. And for students to access our scholarship portal for the very first time, their first step is going to be to set up what's called a Blackbaud ID. So when you click on the Continue with Blackbaud ID button, that's going to take you to the page where you'll be able to set up that Blackbaud ID for the very first time. So this is the page that it'll take you to. And as I mentioned, first time sign in, you're not going to have this information. So the first thing that you'll need to do is click on Need an Account Sign Up. When you click on that sign up link, it'll take you to the page where you'll create your Blackbaud ID. So you're going to enter an email address. And the email address that you use, it depends on your student status. So current Waubonsee students who are already attending classes here at the college, or new students who've taken dual credit courses before, all have a Waubonsee student email address issued to them. For any student who has a Waubonsee student email, that's going to serve as your username. For brand new students who've never taken dual credit courses or registered at Waubonsee before, your username would be the personal email address associated with the new student application that the student did. So especially for new students, this can get a little confusing, knowing which email address is tied to their scholarship application account. So I always like to encourage students, if you're not sure, if you're running into any issues, reach out to my office. We can help you figure out what email address you should be using to complete the sign up process. So after you enter in that email address as your username, you're going to create a password. The requirements for the password are listed right there on the screen. Then you're going to put in your name and you're going to hit the sign up button. As soon as you hit sign up, the software will send you an email with a 6-digit verification code that you'll then put in to complete the verification process and fully activate your scholarship account. The other step to this is that our software does use a security feature called multi-factor authentication. So the first time that you log in, it will prompt you to set up multi-factor authentication. And there's a couple ways you can do it. You can use a mobile authenticator app. So for example, there's Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. There are a lot more applications and software that are using multi-factor authentication. So if you already have an authenticator app that you potentially use for other accounts or other software, and you want to use that for your Blackbaud ID, you can absolutely go ahead and do that. The other option would be to set up text messaging. So you'll enter your mobile phone number to set it up, and then when you do that, it will email that verification message, that verification code directly to your mobile phone number. So once you're logged in, you've got your account activated, you're going to be able to start working on the application itself. So the first section of the application is academic information. So this is where you're going to answer things like whether you plan to be full-time or part-time, whether you plan to continue on to pursue a 4-year degree after you're done with your time at Waubonsee, or are you going to do your 2-year degree and then go directly into the workforce? At the end of this section, every student is required to upload an unofficial transcript from their most recent educational institution. For current students, this would be your Waubonsee transcript, which you can get out of MyWCC. When you access your Waubonsee transcript through the self-service portal in MyWCC, it opens it up as a web page, so you'll just need to print it to a PDF. Then that PDF can be uploaded to your scholarship application. For new students, it's either going to be your high school, or if you're transferring in from another college, your transcript from that other college that you're transferring from. Again, you just need an unofficial transcript in PDF format. Then you're going to upload it to your scholarship application. It's just like attaching a file to an email. The next section is financial information. So because the majority of our scholarships don't have any kind of U.S. citizenship or permanent residency requirement associated with them, we don't require our applicants to file a FAFSA. We do certainly encourage students to file a FAFSA or the Illinois Alternative App, depending on your eligibility, because for those of our scholarships that are need-based, you do need to have either the FAFSA or the Illinois Alternative App to be considered for those. However, if you choose not to file a FAFSA or an Illinois Alternative App, you can still be considered for any of our other scholarships that aren't based on financial need. So because of all of that, we do have a very short financial information section on the FAFSA or on our application. We do keep it very brief. It's not nearly as complex as the FAFSA is. So in this section, we basically ask whether or not the student is dependent or independent, whether or not they work and what their estimated annual income is, the other estimated annual income in the household, which for a dependent student would be parent, how many people will live in the household in the upcoming academic year, and of those people, how many will be in college. And that's it. So we keep the financial information section pretty straightforward. Next section is general information. So what this section is actually a series of checkboxes. We've grouped them by category. So as you go through and you read these sections, you're going to go through each category, read the checkboxes, and mark anything and everything that applies to you as an applicant. So for example, the first section on there is extracurricular activities and interests. So in this section, you may be able to, obviously you'll check the box that says, I am a Waubonsee student athlete. You may also be able to check the box that says, I have participated in community service activities and I am bilingual and I am in a union, or my parent is in a union. So there's a lot of options in this section. So you can check anything and everything that applies to you. If nothing in a section applies to you, there is a box that you can mark that says none of the above. So you're just going to read through these, check the boxes, and then keep moving. And your responses to these, as I said, will help our scholarship software match you up to all of the scholarships that you may be eligible for. So you want to make sure that you're reading them carefully and that you're checking as many boxes as apply to you. After that, we have the essay section. So this is the section of the application that students usually leave to last. What we did to try to make essays a little bit easier was we took the components of a good scholarship essay and we broke it down into 6 short answer questions. So students can tackle this in pieces. They don't have to do the whole thing all at once. I do always try to recommend to students save your responses to these, because when you take these paragraphs and you combine them together, you have a whole complete essay that you can use as a template for other applications. So feel free to, copy and paste your responses over into a Google Doc or a Word document so that you can save them for the future. So the very first section is an introduction. So this is where you're going to tell our scholarship committee a little bit about you, help them get to know you. I always like to encourage students, feel free to get creative here. I worked with a student a few years ago. Her goal was to become a music therapist. So she had this running theme of music through her whole essay. And in her introduction, she talked about how she got into music as a child, her favorite genres, her favorite artists, the instruments that she knew how to play. Music was what she was passionate about. So that was how she introduced herself to our committee. I worked with another student actually this year, and we were chatting, and they actually wound up using an icebreaker question to help kind of generate some ideas for their essay. So, things like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? If you could pick a song that was the theme song of your life, what would it be and why? So if you're struggling to generate some ideas, and something like an icebreaker question is a great way to come up with something creative that you can kind of get the ball rolling on helping our committee get to know you as an applicant. Next section is goals. So this can be educational and or career goals. What I always like to tell students here is that it's okay to say that you don't know. If you know exactly what you plan to major in and exactly what career path you want to pursue, that is great. By all means, go ahead and write about that. But that's not the case for a lot of students. And that's part of the advantage of attending Waubonsee, is being able to take classes in different areas, figure out what the best fit is for you, and what you want to pursue in the future. So if that's how you're planning to use your time at the college, absolutely, by all means, go ahead and say that in your essay. Next, we have accomplishments. So this can be awards, certificates, recognitions, anything that you're proud of. I worked with a student last year. She was a returning adult student. She wrote about her kids here. Raising her kids was her proudest accomplishment, so that was what she wrote about. I had another student a few years ago who had self-taught themselves a foreign language. So they wrote about, the process that they went through to be able to learn a foreign language. So there's a lot of options here. After that, we have activities. So this can be obviously athletics, other extracurriculars, volunteer work, jobs. It's whatever you do outside of the classroom. Then we have obstacles. So this is usually the section of the essay that students struggle with the most. And I always like to say it does not have to be anything as dramatic as running into a burning building to save puppies. If you did that, write about that, that would probably get you a scholarship. Um, but for a lot of our students, the topics that we tend to see here are things like being the first in your family to go to college and having to figure out a lot of things on your own. Financial hardships, learning disabilities, mental health struggles, there's a variety of things that we see students write about here. It's whatever you personally have struggled with in the past or are currently struggling with to be able to pursue your academic and career goals. Next, we have a closing. So this is where you're going to talk about how the scholarship would help you, what it would mean to you, how it would make a difference for you. I also like to point out that this is a great place to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read my scholarship application. Thank you for considering me for a scholarship. It sounds like a little thing, but it really does go a long way with our scholarship committee. So we have our scholarship committee is made up of members of the Waubonsee Foundation Board of Directors, as well as faculty and staff from the college. And they read all of the scholarship applications that come in. And last year we received 567 scholarship applications. So it's a big job. And they volunteer their time to do this. And when they see a student that shows that they appreciate that this is a unique opportunity that not every student gets, it really does help make the student stand out. As I mentioned, we had 567 applications last year. We only had enough scholarships to be able to give out 364 scholarship awards. So not every student who applies is necessarily going to receive something. And we had a lot of really qualified, great applicants last year that just we unfortunately did not have enough money to be able to make sure that everybody got something. So when a student takes the time to show their appreciation and that they recognize that this is an opportunity that not everybody's going to get, that really does go a long way towards showing our scholarship committee that the student is going to be a good investment of scholarship dollars as someone who would appreciate it. So I see a lot of scholarship application essays. The ones that tend to be the most successful have a few things in common. First and foremost, tell a story. A lot of times what we see are lists, especially for things like activities or accomplishments. Lists are hard to remember. Your ultimate goal when it comes to any scholarship application is for the committee that's reviewing it to remember who you are when it comes time to decide who to give money to. That's it. That's your top goal, is for them to remember you. Lists are hard to remember. Stories are much easier to connect with on an emotional level and trigger memories later on. So for example, I worked with a student a few years ago, and she actually only wrote about one thing, and it was the same thing for both activities and accomplishments. So she was an international student from Venezuela, and in her home country, they had had a series of mudslides that had left a lot of people homeless, displaced them from their houses. So she and her classmates decided to organize a fundraiser to raise money and help people who had been impacted by this natural disaster. So in the activity section, she talked about, the actual process, planning the event, putting together a committee, recruiting volunteers, finding sponsors. And then in the accomplishment section, she talked about how much money they raised, how many people they were able to help, what she learned, leadership skills, organizational skills, and so on. It was one thing, but she told us a full detailed story that we were able to connect with. And we remembered her when it came time to decide who to give a scholarship to. And we actually, were so connected to her story and invested in it that she was asked to speak at one of our fundraising events. So that's the impact of telling a story. It really does make a big difference. Tip number 2, proofread. Proofread it yourself, ask somebody else to proofread it. There's a built-in spell check in the scholarship software. Make sure that you're using it. I emphasize that not because we're picky about grammar, but the harder your essay is to read, the less likely you are to be remembered. Once again, Your goal is to be remembered. So you want to make it as easy for our scholarship committee as possible. I've seen some essays where not a single word was capitalized. There was no punctuation. Words were spelled wrong. It was a blob of words on the page that took 4 times as long to read as it should have. By the time I got to the end of it, all I remembered was how difficult it was to read. So you want to make it as easy as possible. Nobody's expecting perfection, but we want to see that you took it seriously, that you put in the effort to try to make your essay look as professional as possible. My third tip. When you're filling out our application, you'll see that each section has its own word limit. So in 250 words or less, or in 150 words or less. If we give you 150 words to respond to a question, and you've only used 20 of those words, chances are you haven't really told us a whole lot. So if you're struggling with what to write, I always like to recommend to students to try asking yourself questions. Why does this matter to me? Why should it matter to the scholarship committee? What have I learned from it? How is this going to help me in the future? I was working with a student a few years ago. She was really struggling with the activities section. She had one sentence written. I go home after school to babysit my nephew. That was it. So technically she answered the question. She told us what she does outside the classroom, but there was no other detail. So she and I sat down and had a conversation, and I asked her to, tell me more about that. And what she explained to me was that her older sister had recently become a single parent, had to move back in with them. And in order for her sister to be able to go to work and earn the funds that she needed to be able to support her son, somebody needed to stay home and provide childcare. So the student decided to give up her extracurricular activities and go home every day after school to babysit her nephew so that her sister could go to work. I said, that's great. Write that. Tell us that story. That's an amazing story to share. So, share that with our committee. And then I asked her what she was planning to major in. She said nursing. So I asked her, what has taking care of your nephew taught you about taking care of another human being? And how is that going to help you when you start your career as a nurse? So like I said, ask yourself questions. How is this going to help me in the future? What have I learned from it? If you're talking about activities, you can go ahead and give us that list, but pick 1 or 2 of those things and tell us more about them. If you're talking about, your participation in a club that's specific to your high school, tell us what that club does. A lot of times what we see is, I'll have somebody write in their essay that were president of the Interact Club. Well, that's specific to your high school. We don't know what that means. We don't know what the Interact Club does. So tell us that story. What do you do? What's the goal of your participation in these kind of activities? So tell us the story. Give us more detail. Help us learn about who you are as an applicant. All right, that's my spiel on essays. I always spend the most time talking about that because that really is where our scholarship committee is going to get to know you. So you want to make sure that you're making your essay as detailed and as polished as you can. The next section on the application is the letter of recommendation. So we require 1 letter of recommendation from every applicant. It can come from anyone as long as that person is not a friend or family member. So teachers, counselors, coaches, bosses, we get letters from a variety of sources. I had a student one year ask me if her therapist could write a letter of recommendation, and I said, sure, why not? You just want to make sure that you're asking someone who knows you well and can speak to why you would be a good candidate for a scholarship. In this section on the application, you're going to click on the Add a New Reference link. When you do that, you'll see fields where you can put in the person's name and email address. As soon as you hit Save, that person is going to get an email with instructions and a personalized link that will let them upload their letter of recommendation directly to your scholarship application. So it's all done electronically. We try to make it as easy as possible, streamlined as possible. I always recommend, talking to the person ahead of time so that you can give them a heads up, make sure you have the right email address and give them a heads up to let them know to expect an email from the Waubonsee Foundation so they can respond to it as quickly as possible. If for whatever reason your reference is having trouble uploading the recommendation, say maybe the email didn't come through or they accidentally deleted it or they're just having trouble with the upload itself, go ahead and feel free to put them in touch with our office. We can help them walk them through that process, or have them email it to us so that we can upload it on their behalf. We're happy to help people with that. And on that note, here's the contact information for the development office at the college. So the development office works with the Waubonsee Foundation. To reach out to us, you can either call us at 630-466-2316 or email us at foundation@waubonsee.edu. If you are selected to receive one of our scholarships, we would notify you by email. So as I mentioned earlier, our first application deadline is on February 5th. If you get everything in by that date, we start the process of reviewing all submitted applications once that first deadline has passed. And then in early April, we'll start notifying students whether or not they were selected to receive a scholarship. If you are selected to receive a scholarship, you'll get a notification to let you know the name, the amount, the details, as well as walk you through the process of accepting that scholarship. If you aren't selected for a scholarship during the first round of awarding, your application will stay under consideration for the second round that starts after the May 13th deadline. So we start sending out emails in April, and that process will continue all the way through July. So just because you don't get an email right away doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get a scholarship. You'll just want to keep an eye on that email address tied to your scholarship application account. And if we do reach out to you about a scholarship, make sure that you're responding to us. So that, because there is a process to complete the acceptance. And if a student, we reach out to them several times and we don't receive a response back, what we do is we actually go through and we re-award the scholarship to another applicant if we never hear back from the student. So you want to make sure you're responding to us so you don't lose out on that opportunity. For new students who maybe haven't necessarily made their decision yet about whether or not for sure they're attending Waubonsee next year, still go ahead and do our scholarship application. If you submit your foundation scholarship application, are awarded a scholarship, and then for whatever reason aren't here at Waubonsee next year, you can always decline the scholarship and then we just re-award it to another applicant. If you don't do the foundation scholarship application and you do attend Waubonsee next year, then you'll have missed out on that opportunity because we award everything that we have. We don't hold anything back and we don't reopen the application again later. So you want to make sure that you get your application submitted so that you can be considered for scholarships in the event that you do attend Waubonsee next year for the 24-25 academic year. As I mentioned previously, if you have any questions, concerns, or you need any help with the application process, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Even if you just want someone to look over your application and make sure that you've answered everything or give feedback on your essay, we're happy to do that. The college tutoring center also offers assistance with essay writing. So you can reach out to the tutoring center, you can reach out to us. We're happy to, help with essay feedback and to help, make your application as strong as it can be. Thank you very much for attending. As once again, I can't say it enough. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to us. But otherwise, good luck with your application.